Mike Gallagher. Every day, Mike visits with Mark Davis, morning host on 660 AM The Answer in Dallas. Here's today's M&M Experience.
A friend of mine said, I want to write a 1,000-word essay. This is talking to ChatGPT and said, I want to write a 1,000-word essay on radio talk show host Mike Gallagher. So a 1,000-word essay came back. About 80% of it was right. The stuff that was wrong, oh boy. In 2008, Mr. Gallagher had prostate cancer and successfully battled prostate cancer. Now, I'm thinking it got mixed up with my wife's cancer because that was 2008.
It's like a bad Google search gone wrong in some of
bingo.
these things.
And he graduated and got his master's degree at Ohio State University. Well, no. My critics would.
You were in,
I was in Ohio. I visited Ohio State University a couple times. I mean, there were things factually that were really, really wrong in the middle of about 80%. So it certainly isn't infallible.
Now, if you give it 1,000 words, to bat 800 with 80% is still pretty semi-impressive and semi-scary. I did something, and I guess it was when you were gone, or I did it, and it was I asked it to write. I will do this, my homework today. I will do this, and I'll share it with you tomorrow. I asked it to write a promo for like a little radio promo for you and me. Sure. And it was pretty darn good. It was pretty attentive to the way you and I ply this trade. And so I'll do that. I'll have that for you tomorrow.
It's going to be a massive game changer because already companies are having to grapple with, how do we utilize it? Do we not utilize it? Are we going to replace people? Jobs are going to be gone.
Well, speaking of our trade, speaking of our job, I mean, if you really want to lose some sleep, and I'm not really because I'm not 30. But there is a company. I'll Google this some more. Speaking of which, that will provide AI broadcast content from a voice. And here's the weird thing: is because we're all used to the sort of the synthesized voice of the kind of the text to speech kind of thing. In this world of deep fakes, where you can have people who look in video exactly like famous people, you can now have, and I don't think it'll ever have the verve, the panache, the style that you and I have, or that people who are particular, but can vocal AI, let me clear my throat. Can vocal AI sound sort of like this? You bet it can. Can it have the proper inflections? Can it sound very much like a human being? You bet it can. Be afraid. Be very afraid. And I don't just mean for our jobs or anything like this, but just look out. Just look out. Here it comes.
This is the personification of evil. I mean, this is really scary stuff. I think this is the definition of evil. I think that we are watching something really insidious. I mean, we go back to 2001. We go back to 2001: A Space Odyssey, and HAL the computer taking things over, and you start thinking about computers running amok, and it's scary stuff.
Isaac Asimov's I, Robot, where one of the premises of the robot code was to protect humanity or something like that. So, what could go wrong? The robots are supposed to protect us, and what they ultimately wind up protecting us from is our very humanity, the bad decisions that we make. So the robots decide, well, maybe we need to make the decisions for it. So is AI and all of this stuff. It's not, I mean, no technology is inherently evil. It is just that we're not ready for it. It's humanity is fallen, that man has a sin-stained nature, and we can't keep up morally with the technological advances. So while AI may be a miracle game changer in many fantastic ways in a whole lot of industries, kind of like the internet itself, kind of like social media, our darker instincts will give it a dark underbelly and a bad side that we'd better be attentive to.
I'm just afraid we don't even know how to tap. We haven't tapped into a fraction of what is out there and what's capable of happening. It's kind of depressing. It's a little bleak, and it's more than a little scary. Meanwhile, we got day-to-day things that we have to tackle.
30 seconds to finish up on this, and there's another, not to make everybody lose sleep, but the other huge problem with the AI stuff, people are listening to this right now and going, that might be a problem. Whatever. We'll get to it in the year 2047. we are very crisis responsive. We're not worried about terrorism till 9/11. We're not worried about the O-rings in the shuttle till the shuttle explodes. We will have to have AI do something horrible or have a grip on us that is already perhaps insurmountable before we wake up and decide we got to do something.
And then it may be too late. And then the cow's out of the barn. So
Wow.
on that, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
I'll see you.
All right. Well, speaking of that, I mean, speaking of bleak, New York Times breathlessly reports that it was Tucker, a personal text that Tucker Carlson wrote to a producer that alarmed the hierarchy at Fox News. And the big line, the sentence that he wrote in a private text, or what he thought was a private text, it was referring to the January 6th riots. Quote, "It's not how white men fight." Now, I'm trying to, honestly, everybody knows what a big fan I am of Tucker Carlson. I'm not exactly sure what that means. Does that mean white men fight in a superior way to people of color? What does that mean? Do minorities not fight well?
And
what does that mean?
I'm also trying to check because the New York Times story that I found and sent to you, maybe you'd seen it already.
Oh, it's all over the place.
But here's the thing. Was it actual? Okay, it wasn't actual January 6th. He sent it on January
7th.
He sent it on January 7th.
Yeah.
And I have it right in front of me here. So as we continue to obsess about Tucker, he wrote to a producer.
I'm not upset. Wait a minute. Knock that off. Knock that crap off. Nobody's obsessing about Tucker.
Well,
this is a big deal.
Okay.
This is a big honking deal. And anybody who does what we do for a living,
prove my point.
Well, anybody who does what we do for a living should not slough this off and talk about an obsession and just write this off as one guy got fired from a network. It's way bigger than that, Mark.
This may shock you, but I wasn't talking about you, or I wasn't even really talking about us. When I said as we continue to obsess about Tucker, I mean as we pay proper attention to the loss of one of the biggest, most important shows in recent cable history. Okay.
Thank you.
So he wrote, and I won't do the whole thing. A couple of weeks ago, he wrote, I was watching video of people fighting on the street in Washington. A group of Trump guys surrounded an Antifa kid and started pounding the living S out of him. It was 3 against 1. Jumping a guy like that is dishonorable, obviously. It's not how white men fight. And there's the big stop down. But then Tucker goes on to reveal something that is genuinely good about his character, that here were guys on his side beating the heck out of an Antifa guy who he would probably despise personally, but that it was wrong. Much as I despise what he says and does, much as I'm sure I'd hate him personally, I shouldn't gloat over his suffering. I should be bothered by it. I should remember that somewhere somebody probably loves this kid and would be crushed if he were killed. If I don't care about those things, if I reduce people to their politics, how am I better than he is?
That's right.
That is an eloquent statement of character from Tucker, but I confess I can't read minds, and I don't know what he meant by "that's not how white men fight."
And all that matters are those 6 words. It's not how white men fight. To the New York Times, to Media Matters, to all of them. That's what they're. There's a fascinating thing that's going on behind the scenes, and I just know enough people that I can share this with confidence. This is all coming from Fox. Fox is leaking this stuff to the New York Times, to Media Matters. Fox News Channel has a legendary PR lady. She was a Roger Ailes acolyte. And Roger Ailes, he did not play softball. I mean, they play hardball over there. And clearly what's happening with Tucker is they're doing everything they can to smear him. There's a pretty insightful article this morning in Mediaite saying this doesn't reflect well on the people who are leaking all the private text messages and the outtakes on video, because you worked with him for all these years and you were fine to make money with him, and all of a sudden, I mean, it's not
and
good.
If they're being this petty, all he's going to do is win. Tucker had 3.5 million viewers every night. His little 2-minute video, kind of just waxing eloquent about stuff, now has 80 million views in less than a week, leading a lot of people to saying that he may need to just find some other platform and not be in an environment where jittery executives can derail him.
Download the podcast and hear all of Mike and Mark's conversations at mikeonline.com for the M&M experience.